starting to get an idea of the kind
Bedtime. Oh crap, it's bedtime, I can't believe it. Here we are. Free time, everyone. Sweet. Nice show. Nice show, it's free time, hell yeah. Go and smoke some weed. Out in the yard. Hell yeah.
of control I have over you yet? The now familiar voice said in a tone that almost sounded excited. What do you want from me? I asked, my anxiety growing. I told you, I want to watch you burn. Why? What the hell did I ever do to you? Absolutely nothing, the voice said. Then why? Damn it. Several people in the cubicles next to me looked over as I raised my voice without meaning to. The man ignored my question, instead saying, check the drafts folder in your email. I hesitated, not sure if I should obey the voice, but I found that my curiosity got the better of me. I pulled up the email application and saw an indicator that showed me I had a single unsent draft. I was confused, not remembering having typed up an email to send anyone. I pulled up the draft to find a long manifesto. My eyes grew wider with every sentence I read. The email, which was signed with my name, rambled on about how unhappy I was with my life and how terribly I felt everyone at work had treated me. It said that I blamed those around me for my unhappiness. It was the last line, however, that caused a sinking dread to fill the pit of my stomach. It read, I will kill every last one of you. I looked up at the top of the email to see it was addressed to everyone in the company. I jerked my hand, trying to move the mouse to delete the email before it could be sent, but the mouse had stopped obeying my command. Not so fast, said the voice on the phone. I still need that. As I watched, the mouse moved and selected the send button. I sat there, frozen for a few moments, not looking away from the computer. After about 30 seconds, startled yells could be heard from the cubicles around me. Bodies began shuffling away from me. The voice in my ear sounded giddy now. Spoiler alert, they'll also find a duffel bag filled with weapons and ammo in your trunk. The voice was quiet for a moment, but I could still hear the person breathing in my headset. At least, tell me why. My voice was calm now. I can't tell you why, the voice said thoughtfully. The truth is, I don't even know why. But don't worry, I'll keep in touch. I'm pretty sure you'll have internet access in prison. Thanks for watching. You can watch a similar video here. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay tuned for more videos.
When I was in high school, I lived in a small town in the Midwest. I worked at a historic, but failing, dual-screen theater. Unfortunately, the building itself was on its last leg, and the interior cosmetic renovations hadn't been made since the mid-80s, when a wall was built over the original stage and converted into a cinema. However, I adored the building, and was deeply saddened by its decrepit state. Many of the locals didn't care much for the theater once they started showing movies, and business dropped enormously from then to when I was employed there in 2007. Most of my shifts I barely saw more than a dozen people for each showing, if that. Some days we didn't even have a single person come in. My manager and I eventually became good friends, and he gave me a key to perform nightly janitorial duties. Needless to say, I was psyched. I loved the idea of coming in after hours to work and try to make the theater look more presentable, and not a typical smelly discount shithole. I would purchase cleaning supplies myself, and brought my mom's vacuum in because the theater didn't have one. I tried as much as a 17-year-old could to make the place more attractive, because it seemed everyone else gave up on her. One Friday night at around 12 a.m., I decided to borrow my uncle's steam cleaner to clean up the seats in the second theater. It was a lengthy task, but I had just got done smoking a joint with a buddy, and I had no issue finishing my night off listening to music and cleaning with a buzz. I entered the theater as usual and began completing petty tasks before tackling the big job. Eventually I entered the second theater and experienced a very uneasy feeling. I have never felt uncomfortable in there before, but for some reason I couldn't shake this pressing feeling on my chest. I assumed I was a little panicky from the pot. I turned my music down and started getting to work to try and get my mind off it. I had my back facing the screen and was scrubbing the second to last row near the exit when I suddenly heard a lot of rustling coming from behind the screen. This didn't come as much of a shock, considering that we've had pest issues in some of the storage rooms behind the screens. Thinking it was a raccoon trying to hide after hearing the drowning noise of my steam cleaner, I continued on and didn't pay much mind to it, until the rustling became very distinct. Whatever the noise was coming from under the screen inside the large metal grate that leads to the stage behind the screen.
Oh shit. Bedtime. Free time patience. Cool. Awesome. It's free time again. Hell yeah. May as well smoke some weed, watch YouTube, and yeah.
And whatever it was big. I turned my cleaner off and stared at the grate, practically frozen in fear and continuing to reassure myself that it was a raccoon, or maybe even a dog or something. The noise became more prominent, and after what seemed like hours of me just staring at the grate, trying to determine what the creature was, the metal grate made a slow and ominous screeching noise as it began to push out from the inside. I continued to stare in intense fear as I witnessed what came tumbling out. A nearly bald head with a couple of strands of gray, dirty hair greeted me before an old, naked woman, absolutely covered in dirt, insects, and blood, came crawling out on all fours and looked directly at me. She paused as she was fully out and forcefully grinning at me with her toothless mouth. I'm not sure how much time went by, but I honestly felt like my feet had melted into the floor. I truly thought I was hallucinating. The way she was positioned like that seemed unreal, and although I was terrified, I think I was more perplexed by her contour. I thought she was a character from Silent Hill I had hallucinated, and that I was tripping on some really bad weed. This is what was playing over and over again in my mind, until she started crawling very quickly towards me without saying a single word, maintaining her grin with her head cocked back and her sagging breasts bouncing back and forth, hitting her bloody arms and smearing dirt and blood together. At that moment I pissed myself and jumped over the last 2 rows of seats. I still can't believe I did that in one leap, and ran as fast as I could to the exit door. I could hear distant shuffling as
If
I
I was
slammed the
there,
door behind me,
I'll grab
locked it,
up
ran
my
to the
knife
police station,
and
which was a
die.
couple of buildings away.
Die.
I gave them the key, called my manager, and told them I wasn't going back. The woman
I
who
was
crawled
stabbed
after
to
me,
death.
according to the police, was a homeless schizophrenic meth addict who decided to take up residency under the screen after managing to enter through a small opening
See,
on the outside
that's
of the
why I
building.
would
When
die,
they
die,
arrived,
die, die,
she was
stab,
crawling
stab,
around in
stab,
circles
stab.
in the lobby. It appeared to them that she had been staying there for at least a week to shoot up meth,
Stab.
and she more than likely watched me on my janitor days, grinning that toothless grin as I swept away.
Oh, stab.
It was definitely the absolute scariest moment of my life, and needless to say, I stopped coming in by myself to clean up.
Yeah, boy.
Since then, the place has closed and is completely boarded up. I miss it greatly, but whenever I come back to the area, I still wonder if she's sleeping in there.
Raise is the brilliant app that invests your spare change from your daily purchases and grows it over time. Rated the #1 micro investment app in Australia with over 1 million downloads.
Fuck off, ads.
This happened to me when I was in 11th grade. I'm a female, and I tend to be a people pleaser. I never like to call anyone out, reject anyone outright, or act like someone is being weird. I'm also a bit open-minded, and I tend to go with the flow. School started in early September, and in my marine biology class, I noticed that there was this boy that kept staring at me from the corner of my eye. I just made one of those half smiles towards him to acknowledge him, and went on about my assignment. I really did not think much of it for a couple of weeks, even though he continued to stare. He was very skinny and tall, had brown hair. His eyes were so brown that they looked black. He had a generally nondescript face, other than his super dark eyes. One day he decided to say hi. I said hello back to him, and he told me his name, which was Alex. I told him mine, but he said that he already knew my name. That wasn't a surprise, as I have rather large handwriting, and he could have easily watched me write my name down on one of my papers, since he was staring at me so much. It was kind of odd that he didn't really have any facial expression when he flatly said that he knew my name. I just sort of laughed it off, said, "Oh, okay," and began putting my things in my bag as the bell was about to ring. I only had a few friends, and we always sat at the same table during lunch. We were all rather quiet, and most times read while we ate. That means I usually don't look around the lunchroom, as I have my eyes in my book. This day my friend finished her novel, so I decided to put mine away and just talk. I immediately noticed Alex staring inside at us from the courtyard tables. He never seemed to be embarrassed that I noticed him. I showed him to my friend and told her about my class with him. She found it to be super creepy, but I said he's probably harmless and was just socially awkward. I arrived.
Okay, I'm ready. However, I wasn't ready at all. I was praying that my sister would say it was all a joke and we could get out of here. But nothing like that happened, and she switched off the lights. I was really scared in the dark, but I didn't tell her that. While looking in the mirror, I started. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. After saying it 3 times, I told my
Ooh,
sister to switch
they
the
built
lights
something
on.
over there.
I got no reply. I asked her again. Sis, please turn on the lights now. The game is over.
Okay, so cold area, walking to area, okay.
All of a sudden,
And then, what is this?
hand on my shoulder, which
Shocker.
prompted me to look up in the mirror.
Nice.
And what I saw in that mirror wasn't my sister. And when I turned around, there was no one behind me. This scared me so much that I froze in place. I wanted to scream, but I wasn't able to do so. I was sensing some unknown presence in there.
Might as well chill here, I guess.
But somehow I got out of there and I went into my sister's room and that's where I saw my sister still sleeping. Sis, wake up, sis. What happened, Amelia? Is everything alright? And why are you screaming? Sis, how long have you been in here sleeping? For some time, maybe? Why? What happened? So, you didn't take me to play the game of Bloody Mary? Bloody Mary? Why would I take you? You know I don't believe in those things, and I was sleeping.
Flying into my world!
Sat completely still. Regardless, I got closer and, once I was within a few steps, handed her the note. When the note touched her hand, she didn't react. This caused me to get closer, and this was when I realized something was very wrong. Her face had a very dry, almost mummified look to it. Her hair was a vibrant black, a color not often seen on older females. She had to have known I was there by that point, but her eyes stayed fixed. This is what caused me to lean in even closer and look into her eyes. Rather than being slightly bloodshot or moist looking like most people's, they had a shiny, glassy appearance, like they were fake. In spite of this, not until I actually touched her did I know for sure her bare hand.
Bedtime.
The texture.
Patience. Free time, patience. Nice. Cool. Nice. I guess let's go into the shocker area and go underneath the stairs. Walk the seats. Smoke some weed.
Her skin was dry, but stone cold to the touch. The oddity of this was just beginning to really sink in. when a loud creaking noise came from behind me. Without a second thought, I tore out of there and ran back down the road in the direction of my car. Within a half of a mile, I ran into an older man in a truck, and thankfully he agreed to give me a ride back into town. I said nothing about my experience to him, and any time he attempted to make small talk, I said as little as I could, on the off chance that he may have been involved in what happened to that woman. He let me borrow his phone to call my girlfriend, and she agreed to meet us at a gas station on the edge of town. When he let me out there, I thanked him, and he went on his way. Once I was safely inside, distinct features other than he seemed to be a white male in his late 40s, around 6 foot, medium build, and had a strong smell of cigarettes and whiskey. My friend, we'll call her Faith, and I were both kind of weirded out because he didn't say anything for a couple of seconds until he said,
over there?
"You know, you really shouldn't scare people like that. It's quite naughty." That scared me just because the whole time he was still smiling and staring at us all over. I was frozen, and Faith just grabbed my arm and said sorry to the man, and we ran off. The next day was normal, but when it was sunset, we wanted to run around the campsite and be kids. When we were running around, we heard someone yell, "Yoo-hoo," from up the hill, and so we look up and see no one, so I, without thinking back, yelled,
I wonder
"Yoo-hoo."
what.
And then we see someone walk towards us
Right
on the hill.
over there, I wonder.
You guessed it. It was the man from the night before. I wasn't scared this time. I was in such a good mood, so I let the guy come towards us, and he yells down to us.
Oh,
"Where are your parents?"
I think this is supposed to be
Which
a
Faith
new
replies,
school.
"Oh, they're at the campsite."
Okay, nice. So,
When he hears that,
you
the
know,
grin comes back and he
I
asks,
can go back to school,
"It's getting dark.
but in
So
the
why don't I
mental
walk you back?"
hospital. Nice.
We started to get creeped out and said, "No,
Okay,
it's okay,
cool.
it's pretty far away." Which he
Hell
responds with,
yeah.
"Oh well,
I can't wait
I have
until
2
that
kids and they have
open
bikes you
so
can
I can
borrow
go
up
to
at my
school there.
campsite. Why don't you come with me and I'll show you?"
Hell yeah.
I was scared and all I wanted to do was go back, but I didn't want to hurt his
I
feelings,
can't wait.
being as naive as I was. So I accepted, and Faith and I started to walk up behind the man with him, as he looked back every few seconds with that grin to make sure we were still
Can't
following.
wait until, you know,
After about 30 seconds, we got to his
that
campsite,
school
and
opens
we looked
so
around
I
and
can
saw
go
no
there.
trace of kids, let alone bikes.
Hell yeah, I
This
can
was a
finally
huge
go
red
back
flag.
to school.
He says to wait
In the
outside of
mental
his trailer
hospital.
while he gets something. I look at Faith and tell her that we have to hide since there's no way we can run back to our parents fast enough, so we book it to the bushes. After about a minute, I see him swing open the trailer door and come outside with not bikes, but duct tape. This sight chilled me to the bone. Even though I was young, my mom and dad had told me about all the scary things that have happened to kids when they wander away. I would always watch murder shows with my dad and had seen an episode when someone was tied up with duct tape. I started to freak out when I see his face change from that disgusting grin to pure anger. He looks around. I told the police as much, and over the following weeks, they would come to agree with me. Other than having his fingerprints and blood at the scene, everything pointed to him. All they had to do was get him in a room alone, and hopefully he would confess, but just locating him to do this would be a 5-year struggle. Countless tips were sent in, but none would pan out. Finally, on a rainy and cold morning in January of 2006, an arrest would take place across the country in Arizona that would put the search to an end. The Tucson police would be led on a high-speed chase after attempting to pull a man over for expired plates. At the end of the chase, Marco Javier Robles would be apprehended, and our search would finally be over. Marco was quickly extradited back east, and the trial was soon to begin. What we feared would be a long and drawn-out affair ended within the week. The district attorney had offered him a very generous plea, and after a strong recommendation from his attorney, he agreed. He'll have to do at least 25 years, but after that, it's up to the parole board. If I have any sway in the matter, I'll do my best to see that he dies in there. We were left with only one question. Some would say the most important one, perhaps. Why? As a stipulation to his plea, Mark was required to tell why he committed the crime, and in full. According to him, Miss Annie had become very demanding, and he felt he wasn't being paid enough to put up with it. He had been planning on hitting me up for more money once summer came along. However, when he found out she had told me that he was unhappy with his pay, in his eyes, his chance for a raise was ruined. That Monday morning, he was angry about this and confronted Miss Annie about what she had said, and a fight broke out. He claimed she grabbed a poker from the fire set and hit him. In self-defense, he struck her with his hammer, but only did so once. His intent was never to end her life, only to make her stop. Unfortunately, it did just that and more, and my family will never be the same because of it. A less rational man than myself would probably put some, if not all, the blame onto myself for hiring the guy. I, however, am not that man. No one else but Mark is responsible for Miss Annie's death. Any other conclusion would be foolish and a desecration to her memory. If there is anything I would say I feel guilty about, it would be that my children weren't able to spend as much time with her as I did growing up. A better example of selfless love and kindness never existed, and I savor every memory I have of her. I hope I can live up to her example and teach my children to be half the human being she was.
I'm originally from Arizona, but I grew up in Nebraska, in a small town about an hour south of the South Dakota border. My life leading up to my living in Nebraska was riddled with abuse and a lot of childhood trauma. My biological father was abusive, and my mother was absent for part of my childhood. I am also bipolar and take daily medication to make my quality of life better because of what happened to me as a child. I currently reside in Oklahoma. To start, I never really experienced anything paranormal growing up. That is until my mom's boyfriend, whom she is still with to this day, came into our lives. He was a good man and ran a small hardware store at which my mom also worked. Before meeting him, she was married to an awful man that did terrible things to me, many of which I still go to therapy for to this day. After the divorce, we spent a lot more time at her boyfriend's house. The house was built in the early 1900s, and it was absolutely huge and beautiful. She never told us at first that it used to be an old mortuary. Her boyfriend's father, who moonlighted as a mortician, ran the hardware store in town, which was passed down to his son upon his death. Even after telling my brother and I, my brother being 12 and I 15 at the time, that the house was an old mortuary, it never really bothered us. We spent our summers there swimming and playing PlayStation 3 and genuinely having a good time. Quite honestly, the best summers of my teen years. I enjoyed it. The home was warm and inviting. That is, until you got to the basement. The steps leading down to the basement were steep, about 10 of them before you reached the bottom. The basement had flooded many times before, so there was no carpet, just cold cement. Immediately to the right was a refrigerator, the washer and dryer, and the cubicle shower, which was flush against the wall and was positioned so it was directly behind you when you came down the stairs. If you walked forward, there were 2 couches positioned in an L shape to the right, the longest one pushed against the west wall. To the left were 2 brick pillars that acted as support beams for the house, spaced 5 feet apart with a dirty old blanket hanging between them as a shield. Behind the blanket was a vertical rectangle of a room. One half was a wooden workbench of old tools and trinkets, a random toilet that actually worked, and in the far left corner of the rectangle was a small pile of remnants from when the house was an acting mortuary. There was a bathtub, no longer operational, piles of wood shelving, and a small metal table on wheels. I always felt anxious going into the basement. I never could figure out why, but the atmosphere down there made me feel uneasy. I would sometimes come down to the basement to get a soda from the refrigerator, and I always had the feeling of static across my back, my neck, and my shoulders. It would make my hair stand on end, and I never walked up the stairs like normal people do. I walked backwards, because there was always the feeling of someone right behind you, making your fight or flight response kick in. It was definitely not my favorite place to be. My first encounter happened when I saw a shadow dart across the wall as I came down to get a soda. I knew the shadow wasn't my own, and I even tried to duplicate it, but I couldn't. The shadow passed along the ground level window, almost 8 feet up. There's no way it was mine. I left quickly and slammed the door shut behind me, but the main incident that cemented my belief in the paranormal happened when I was 15. I had just gotten back from swimming all day, and I was sunburned and looking forward to rinsing off. But of course, the only shower in the house was, you guessed it, in the basement. I grabbed some clothes and headed down to get it over with. I didn't want to be down there longer than I had to. I grabbed a towel from the wire rack above the washer and dryer, turned on the water, got undressed, and hopped in. The glass in the little shower was tempered, meaning you could see blobs of shapes and colors, but no real definition. I was rinsing off and proceeded to close my eyes and put my head under the stream of water. I moved out of the way, wiped my eyes, and opened them. I froze. Through the glass, I could see someone standing there to the left. My mom was upstairs taking a nap, and my brother was on the second floor playing PlayStation. There would be no reason for either of them to be down there, especially standing still looking at me. I stared at the shape through the glass. That feeling of unease came over me again, but stronger this time. I stood there for a moment, gathering up the courage to open the door. Slowly, I pushed it open, never taking my eyes off of the figure. When I opened it, it did make my heart race as I heard the steps begin again, stopping at the top of the stairs. It was probably my brother. No big deal. Closing my eyes, I heard my door creak open.
This year, USC Open Day is going online, which will be almost the same as being here, but without the king.
And footsteps come into my room, stopping at the edge of my bed. Someone was standing over me, just watching. A bit freaked out, I did a side glance, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw my brother standing over me, and letting out an annoying grunt, I asked, "What do you want?" There was no response. Sighing and closing my eyes, I rolled onto my side. I opened my eyes to look at him again, and my heart stopped. He wasn't there. Standing up, I trudged to his room, but he wasn't there. No one was there. After that, I felt uneasy as I turned to go back to my room, but I froze. That door that was always locked was open. Did he go in there? I remember going in and grabbing my phone, turning on the flashlight, and just standing there, staring at my floor. Something felt so wrong. My gut told me that I wasn't alone. There was someone in there with me, and they were not good. Slowly, I went to shine my light into the room to see if my brother was there. There was nothing. At this point, I heard my heart pounding in my ears as I shut the door, quietly going back to my room. I told myself it was my imagination as I lay back in bed and closed my eyes. I fell asleep eventually, silently muttering prayers under my breath to put my mind at ease. I did question my brother the next morning if he had gone upstairs, but he just told me no. Ever since that night, every night I hear footsteps coming from upstairs, and they stop at my door. I began to have nightmares of a very tall man coming up from the basement and to my door, peering his pale face inside to look at me with his unnaturally wide and terrifying smile. Not only that, but the door that my mom kept locked since then would be found wide open almost every morning I woke up. was wrong with that house, and I'm just glad we don't live there anymore. When I was 14, I was sent to a mental institution. Here's why. I don't have any friends, and I kept to myself. I loved to look at pictures of dead people, and to be honest, I still do. My parents struggled with trying to make me act normal, and I have no explanation for you or for them. I didn't like other kids. I didn't like anyone, not even my parents. The only person that I did like was my little brother Harold, who was just like me. He was quiet, and he didn't have any friends either. We would play outside and hang out all the time, and everything was great. Until this one night. Harold and I got into an argument, and he told me that he wished he could kill our parents. I wasn't close with our parents, and like I said before, I didn't even like them, but I never felt like hurting them. Harold told me that not only did he want to hurt them, he wanted to cut them open with the pocket knife in the garage. He wanted to take the knife and slit them open. This made me cry. I ran to my parents' room, probably like 2 o'clock in the morning, screaming and crying. Harold followed me and was screaming that I was lying over and over. I screamed and told my parents what Harold said and what he wanted to do. My mom started crying uncontrollably, and my dad started breathing really heavy. Obviously, what I told them was scaring them, and Harold was crying too at this point. The next day, my dad took me to the mental institution. For the longest time, I was in that hospital, angry, not understanding why I had to live there and Harold didn't. It wasn't until 7 years later that I learned why. My dad came to visit me one day, and when I asked about Harold, as I always did, he finally said it. Harold didn't exist. I ran into their room that night, screaming and arguing with myself about how I wanted to kill them, but I didn't want to. This was out of this world, insanely scary. Please forgive the short length. Not much happened. I was 11 years old, living in Boston with my dad. I woke up one night super late for an unknown reason. You know how sometimes you just wake up, look around your room, and then fall back asleep? Yep, that's what happened. I woke up not sure what time, but sometime in the middle of the night. I was looking around the room, and sitting in the darkness of my open closet, I saw a face. A face I had never seen before. Someone was sitting in my closet looking at me. The ability to move my limbs completely left me. I was frozen. I stared at this person for what felt like an hour. Trying to remember now, I'd say it was really only about 20 seconds. Whoever it was reached their arm out of the darkness in front of them and slid the closet door closed, looking into my eyes the entire time. The door closed, and I lay there frozen for probably another 20 seconds. And then I realized I had to leave this room. Obviously, there was no way I was going to go back to sleep. I got up as silently as I could and walked out of my bedroom, which the door was cracked open. I ran to my dad's room and went inside. I woke him up, and naturally he was shocked when I told him that someone was in my closet. He told me to stay in his room, and he went to check. The thought of something happening to my dad scared the hell out of me, so I was crying, waiting for him to come back. After a minute or two, he finally came back and told me that no one was there. Cliché ending, I know. I will say this, I do not care if people believe me or not. It really happened. I was not dreaming. When I left my room, whoever it was in the closet left as well. The front door, the back door, and most of our windows were all unlocked. Stupid, I know, but we were ignorant. This happened 6 years ago, and when I try to remember the face, I can't visualize the details, except one thing. One thing I have always been sure of. It was a man, and he was missing teeth. How do I know? Because he was smiling at me the whole time. This incident took place around 6 months ago on an overnight trip into the Superstition Mountains, which are about an hour drive east of Phoenix. I'm not going to specify the exact trail because I've been doing this stuff long enough to realize what happens when you say too much. Whether it's a good trail, abandoned mine, ghosts, or whatever it might be, people come flocking, and usually with a lot of trash and loud music. This particular trail I was taking was an 8-mile loop through a canyon, a pretty simple overnight trip. I had planned to go with my friend, but at last minute he canceled, and he left me on my own. So with a packed bag and a car ready to go, I decided to go on my own. Not leaving the house on time and some trouble navigating rough forest roads, I didn't arrive to the trailhead until around 5:45, which for those of you who don't backpack, this is a very big no-no. I had about a 4-mile hike until I arrived at my planned camping spot, and it was getting dark fast, so I figured if I moved quick enough, I could get at least 2 to 3 miles in before I had to find a spot. This strategy left me hiking a very dark trail on my own, with about 15 miles of dirt road between me and anyone else. Hiking in the dark by itself is scary, especially for where I was and being on my own. Eventually it got so dark that I could only see where my headlamp was pointing, and that's when I figured I needed to stop and get a camp set up. With only using the headlamp as my light source and trying to move fast, I ended up in a less than ideal spot, but there were some burnt pieces of wood and the remains of a fire circle, so it looked like people had been there before, but it didn't look recent. My first priority was to get a fire going. I scanned the area around me and was able to find some dry wood, and I got the fire going. I got my tarp set up and cracked an open can of chili mac I had brought for myself, and was very much looking forward to eating. I was feeling good. My camp was set up and my food was on the fire. The feeling of uneasiness from the hike had almost gone away, but it was still there. The side effect of camping alone in a remote area.